You are not weak, and you are not broken. The overwhelming urge you feel, the emptiness that seems to flare up again and again, it's not madness, it's not failure, and it's certainly not a moral flaw. What you're experiencing is pain, and all pain has a story, an origin. Carl Jung, one of the greatest explorers of the human soul, suggested that many of our destructive habits aren't just bad patterns. They're desperate attempts to reconnect with something sacred. In a well-known letter to Bill Wilson, co-founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, Jung wrote plainly, "Addiction is a frustrated spiritual quest, a soul crying out for meaning, reaching for transcendence, but finding only alcohol, drugs, or excess instead." He coined the phrase, spiritus contra spiritum, the true spirit battling with the false, the impulse for connection fighting a substitute. On the other side, Hungarian-Canadian physician Dr. Gabor Maté, a leading expert on trauma and addiction, reframes the question. It's not why addiction that matters, but rather why the pain. He teaches that addiction is not the root problem. It's the solution someone found to soothe unresolved trauma. If you're honest with yourself, you may already see this. The force driving you to repeat destructive behaviors, to sabotage yourself or flee from your own feelings. It isn't pleasure. It's anesthesia. This video isn't here to judge you or to give you a lesson. It's here as a mirror. Together, we'll explore what lies beneath addictive behaviors. Whether your escape is in drugs, alcohol, food, sex, work, shopping, or endless distractions, all attempts to fill the same void. And before we continue, if this reflection resonates with your own journey, take a moment to subscribe to this channel, Beyond the Mind, and hit the like button. It's a small gesture, but it helps us keep creating content that dives deep into what truly matters. Buddhism describes this as the realm of hungry ghosts, beings with tiny mouths and boundless hunger. Dr. Maté uses this image to illustrate addiction, a soul that's ravenous for connection, presence, belonging, yet not knowing where to find it. It seizes any relief it can, even at great cost. You might feel exhausted. Maybe you wonder if there's a way out. I can't promise you a quick fix, but I can tell you one thing. There is a path. It begins when you understand that addiction is a symptom, not the disease. Pain isn't an endpoint, it's a calling. If you find the courage to listen, you might discover a new life waiting for you on the other side. Let's take this journey together. Because to deeply understand addiction is to understand yourself, and that understanding can change everything. Addiction doesn't start with the substance. It begins with pain. Before any escape behavior, the first drink, the first compulsive action, there was a suffering body, a neglected heart, a scared, confused, lonely child. A child forced to learn too soon that the world isn't always safe. Dr. Maté spent decades with people society often ignores. Homeless individuals, chronic drug users, patients abandoned by healthcare and families. He found that every one of them carried deep emotional wounds. Some endured abuse, neglect, or lack of love. Others experienced emotional disconnection severe enough to shape their brains toward suffering. To Maté, addiction is the mind's attempt to alleviate that pain. When you see it this way, you stop labeling addictive behavior as weakness or a silly choice, and start seeing it as a legitimate but destructive coping mechanism. Your brain isn't weak, it's protective. When you use a substance or engage in a compulsive behavior, your body releases dopamine, the reward and survival chemical triggered by love, acceptance, connection. But if those heartfelt experiences are absent, your brain learns to create relief another way. Alcohol, cocaine, processed food, social media, shopping, or gaming. Maté echoes the Buddhist symbol of the hungry ghost. Creatures with tiny mouths and huge bellies, starving for something they can never consume. The perfect metaphor for the addicted soul. Constantly seeking, consuming, but never fulfilled. Because what it craves isn't the substance, it's wholeness. It's an attempt to numb the muted cry of that inner child who was never heard. Maybe you recognize yourself in this. Your compulsion might not destroy your life overtly. It could be subtle, socially acceptable. But the question remains, what are you truly trying to avoid feeling? While the world punishes the behavior, the pain beneath it only grows. Silent, invisible. That's why approaches that focus only on abstinence often fail. They fight the symptom, not the cause. And as long as the wound remains, your mind will keep seeking relief, no matter the cost. But what if what you're desperately seeking in substances or escapes is actually inside you? What if real comfort doesn't come from numbing, but from reconnecting with your own soul? That's where Jung re-enters our frame. He saw addiction as not just escaping pain, it's a misdirected search for the sacred. In his letter to Bill Wilson, Jung explained that alcohol represents an unconscious desire for a mystical experience, transcendence, a wrong route to the divine. Addiction offers brief moments of relief, peace, or ecstasy, but the core problem lies in where we're looking. Jung believed that behind each compulsion is a deep impulse of the soul to return to ourselves, to heal, to reintegrate. When that impulse is buried, repressed by trauma, fear, or conditioning, it escapes in harmful ways, through the shadow, through addiction. Hence, for Jung, genuine recovery requires more than abstinence or rational strategies. It demands a journey back to oneself, through symbol, reconciliation, and integration of opposites. Because at its core, addiction stems from losing contact with your inner center and trying to substitute what you've lost through destructive patterns. Yet there's another layer, the shadow. Jung defined the shadow as everything we've repressed. Anger, shame, fear, desire, sadness, vulnerability, ambition, parts of ourselves deemed unacceptable by family, culture, or religion. Just because we bury them doesn't mean they disappear. In fact, they grow, influencing us unconsciously, and often compulsively and destructively. Jung said it best, "What you do not make conscious manifests in your life as fate." In this view, addiction isn't a free choice. It's a divided psyche expressing what has been marginalized. It's the shadow demanding passage. It's repressed pain erupting as compulsion. Have you ever repeated a behavior you swore not to, sabotaged yourself even though it made no sense? Felt overtaken by a force larger than you? That's not a failure of will. It's unconscious material emerging, and the harder you push it down, the stronger it becomes. Addiction becomes a pressure valve, an escape to contain a growing internal explosion. The trap? As long as you fight the addiction, you fight the symptom. You won't address the root, the shadow you're afraid to face. But precisely there, within that darkness, lies healing. Deep recovery asks for courage, the courage to descend into your psyche's depths, to name what's hidden. It's painful, uncomfortable, lonely, sometimes brutal, but it's transformative. Because when you integrate your shadow, it stops controlling you. It becomes a source of power rather than torment. Your shadow contains trauma, unresolved childhood wounds, memories imprinted in body and brain, even if the mind has forgotten them. That's why addiction isn't a disease. It's a survival strategy, a way to self-regulate what was never held or heard. Imagine addiction as an emotional prosthesis, born in places where containment, nurture, listening were absent. It provides what your inner child begged for: relief, comfort, control, albeit fleeting and increasingly damaging. The addict's body carries memory that the mind cannot grasp. Memories of tension, abandonment, unworthiness. That's why recovery must include the body, because trauma lives in the body. Understanding this shifts everything. Guilt gradually dissolves into compassion. Shame begins to ease, but understanding isn't enough. We also need confrontation, acknowledging our own pain, facing it directly. Jung said, "No tree grows to the sky without its roots touching hell." That hell in recovery isn't metaphorical. It's visceral. It's feeling your own unconscious, meeting what's been suppressed. Healing starts when you stop running, when you stay with your pain instead of numbing it, when you see that no amount of distraction can fill that hole, and that healing happens by listening, by presence, by truth. Reaching for your shadow is messy. It isn't pretty or quick. It's stepping away from a war mentality, "I must conquer my addiction," into a posture of reconciliation. The addiction becomes a messenger, pointing to where the wound is. The destructive behavior reveals what's missing, where healing is needed, where the blood still flows. This path is psychological and spiritual. Addiction is a crisis of meaning, a spiritual emergency. Someone with addiction is an exile from themselves, fragmented internally. Recovery isn't just about stopping use. It's about reforming the self, reintegrating, coming home to the soul. But this reunion is possible only when pain is traversed, not escaped. And traversing pain happens in silence, honesty, vulnerability, letting go of illusions and dying to who you were, so you can be born into wholeness. This rebirth doesn't come all at once. It arrives moment by moment, through awareness, through presence, through compassionate support. It starts when you understand. You are not broken. You are disconnected. You are not bad. You are wounded. And you are not alone. You are human, seeking a path back home. And if these words resonated with your experience, don't keep them to yourself. Share this video and let others know they are not alone either. And before you go, remember to subscribe to Beyond the Mind and hit the like button, so this message can reach others walking the same path of healing.